Hello, welcome to Tech Beyond Gender podcast. I'm your host, Meena Satish Kumar. Today's guest is Sumita Chopra, a seasoned technical consultant with World Bank, whose tech journey began in 1999 and spans impactful roles in project management across significant social initiatives in India. Passionate about delivering solutions that enrich communities, Sumita combines her expertise in business strategy and application development with dedicated social work. She firmly believes success comes from preparation, resilience, and continuous improvement. Join us as we explore Sumita's inspiring blend of technology leadership and heartfelt commitment to social impact. Thank you so much, Sumita, for joining us despite the time difference and making time for us.
Thank you so much, Meena, for inviting me. It's been a long journey and it gives me time to reflect upon what's been happening in life because when you're into it, it just goes on. And yeah, thank you so much also for accommodating the time difference.
Yeah, no worries. Now, as you said, like obviously you have long journey, worked in tech from 99, but I would like to start from your childhood. Like how was your childhood like growing up? What really sparked your interest in tech?
So my childhood was very normal. A normal Indian middle class family living in Delhi. So, and that was the time when there was hardly any tech around. So we had a lot of open spaces. We could see the stars in the sky, and the growing up, the one interesting part during the week used to be watching Chitrahar or a movie on the TV. So, and someone going up on the roof to turn around the antenna to get good reception. So yeah, and then when the electricity went off, which used to happen, sitting out in the veranda, all of us, and either listening to the radio or just talking. That was my childhood while growing up with cousins and everyone around, family. So yeah, that was an interesting time. But as you say, what sparked my interest in tech? Um, I used to read a lot. I was always a bookworm, so always had a book in my hand, in the bed, anywhere I was, I would have a book around me. And there were a lot of Enid Blyton and then other this thing. So as I grew up and started reading more genres, um, there were some elements of technology. Robin Cook was one of the, I remember now that you're asking me, that was one of the most interesting tech inspired books that I used to read. Of course, it was medical technology, but still it was tech, and it was very fascinating. Then as I grew up, so this was the 70s and the 80s in India, not much talk of tech also around because the only source you have is the newspapers or the radio, hardly anything on the TV also. But so it was time to, that was a time when generally the career options used to be that you go into engineering or into medical or into something related to the civil services, banking, etc. There or become a teacher. So there were not too many options around, but this was not what I wanted to do. None of these. I didn't want to sit in a government office all day. I did not. I had no interest in science, so engineering and medical were out of the picture totally. And I was wondering what I should do because uh, women in my family always studied and they studied quite a bit. So that was an inspiration to go and do something more. So I was thinking, and the two choices that came to mind, one was thanks to, the Earl Stanley Gardner genre that I used to read, Perry Mason, so law. And then I had heard somewhere about computers coming up and things happening. It was very new at that time. This was in the early 1980s. And so yeah, so that's what sparked me. So one of these I was interested in, then I decided to go in for. I did my BCom honors in college, of course, so that was simple. But then I did not. I was not so much interested in going into the accounting field per se. So the two options I had after graduation that in my mind were law and computers. And fortunately for me, my family, my mom was very open-minded about what my choice is going to be. They left it to me. Of course, there was not much guidance at that time. There were no counselors around. People had only, access to career options which they themselves or someone in the family had done. And this was something which I knew, so I decided to correct. So
Mm.
that's how.
So, after BCom, what did you do? What was your first job?
No, that was not a job. I did a 1 year diploma from NIIT in
Oh,
systems management, and that interested me. I was totally fascinated by creating solutions for the tech field and all. So that was a very very interesting time we had. We used to have a 2 hour class, but we would spend about 6 to 8 hours, either within the institute or outside of it, discussing what we've been doing, what more can be done, and stuff like that. My first job was with a very small. These were not called startups at that time, but it was a small firm, a single owner kind of a small place, which used to do solutions for places. And I got selected there. And it was so interesting. And I really thank my stars for taking that option, because not going in for a bigger company kind of a thing, because I got thrown into the field. It was almost like, thrown into the big pool without knowing any swimming. So I was sent out to a client site to understand and do what they wanted me to do. And it was like, I mean, how am I supposed to start off and what am I supposed to do? Because you would know when you're studying, there is a lot of theory that you understand, but not so much of what actually you have to do. So
mm.
that was immensely, immensely huge learning experience that I had. The almost the 2 years I spent with that company, I think the amount I learned and the amount of work I was able to produce was amazing. Was really amazing. So today, when I hear about such people waxing eloquent about all the ERP solutions and stuff, and I laugh because what did we have to work with? We had PCs with 2 floppy drives. Big floppy drives at that time. I don't even remember how much memory they held, but that's what we had to work around, and we would create an inventory solution. And it was an export firm, and their invoicing and their various other activities were all to be done using floppy drives. So, and the softwares that I was working with, DBase, Fox Pro, I hadn't learned any of these in the institute, of course, but then I had a very fast track course at doing that through experience. But amazing, amazing kind of stuff that I was able. After that, I took up a job with another export house because I thought I'd become quite an expert on working for export houses. Having done that, it was an in-house thing. They wanted the owner, since they kept traveling abroad, so they had the best of the tech at that time. It was a PCXT with one small hard drive and a floppy drive. And then eventually, with hard drive, we also went into PCATs at that time. So it was I mean, now that I look back on it, I'm amazed at the kind of work we were able to do. So I
Mm.
sort of created an entire solution for that, from inventory, finance, invoicing, orders, order processing, etc. All the stuff, vendor management, all that in a using floppy drives and a small hard drive. DBase over the softwares used, and it was fun. It was, I think, one of the most technically creative times that I had to work on stuff. But yeah, so I think that laid a huge, big foundation for me to work in that field, and working with the users themselves gave me a lot of insights into understanding their requirements, into understanding that what they want is actually not exactly how you can produce, but then go deeper into what they actually need, finding out what is the requirement, what is the need, digging deeper into it, because working at the client site, I was able to get those insights much, much better than I could have done any other place. So yeah, that was great.
So you pretty much played the role of a business analyst. Like currently, we have a business analyst who would go and get the requirements, and then you have a tester, you have an engineer, developer, tech lead, whatnot. Did you have
I
any
was
such?
doing all those roles all together.
Yeah, I can imagine. So you designed the solutions, you spoke to your clients directly, stakeholders. Mm.
Yeah, I think that was such a fast track learning experience.
Yeah. So now, when you see the current way of working in technology, where you have all these agile methodologies and all these different roles, and now looking back at your experience, what are your observations? What do you think about it?
So, I learned through COBOL.
Mhm.
COBOL was one of the languages that we learned, and it is a very structured language. And I loved working in it because, you do things in a very structured manner. I
Mm.
wouldn't say sequentially, but yeah, it's structured. That may not work in today's time. I think it still does, but to a much, much different kind of a way, probably from what I learned at that time. And then, I took a few years in between off because of family stuff and all. And then when I came back, people were using VC plus and VB plus and, coding directly into the GUI. And I was like, what are you doing? You don't have a plan on what you want to do, how you want to do. And you just blindly start coding without any plan in hand, without any structure in place. And then you say it's done. And there are issues during testing, a lot of issues which take a lot of time to sort out. So although some of the agile thinking and the agile methods work very well with the kind of environment these days, ever changing kind of an environment. But I think we need to, and it's being done, but in different phases, as you say, there is a different role for an analyst, for a solution architect, for a developer. Um, but what I see is that we need all these roles to work very closely together. If there is, if the communication between the roles is not good, the solution you get is not what is needed or what it should. And that creates a lot of stress in the system. It creates a lot of time lag between when you're supposed to deliver to it, when it actually does, and in the kind of shape it does. So yeah, so I think that communication between, and I know people stress a lot on communication, but I think it needs to be strengthened to some extent.
Mhm. Now,
That's
having worked in tech from those very early stages, have you ever thought, oh my gosh, why am I in tech? I would prefer to work in some other space. Or have you
no,
always
never. Never. I'm so happy and content with what I've been doing. I enjoy what I'm doing, the progression I've had over the years, the kind of work that I'm able to do, the kind of people I'm able to interact with. I'm really happy doing what I'm doing. I have no second thoughts.
So, what is so special? You spoke about the people you interact with and stuff, right? There is this like a common thing about how people in tech are generally a bit neurodivergent. They have a very specific, unique character in them, which makes them good at what they do. Um, What is your view on that? What makes it so special working with people in tech?
So I don't know. I've worked with people all around. Like I said, I started off with working with the client themselves, the stakeholders, etc. And I think that has progressed with me all through my life. Because of all that, I was able to work not just in pure tech, but also in pre-sales for some time in sales as well. And then I worked as a consultant. So all these through, I've been interacting with not just the pure technical people, but also with a diverse kind of stakeholders around me. And I think that rounds off my field of people that I work with. But then also you're right that talking to sometimes I talk, sometimes I say I work almost like a translator, translating the requirements into tech talk and what the technical guys are trying to say into something that a layperson can understand. So yes, I agree with you on that. It's very difficult at times to make the two sides see the same picture in the same manner. It's the same picture in front of them, but they both see it very differently. So then yes, I've enjoyed working at that kind of a bridge between the two sides. Uh, it's given me a lot of learning. It's helped me understand a lot of processes, a lot of uh, domains, which I can then translate into how it should look like in the tech side. And and then the technical people, yes, of course, they speak a different kind of a lingo or language, but then they are also human beings and they also have different sides to them. I've met people who are so creative in different kinds of arts as well, while being technical, poets and writers and singers. And yes, so working closely with them, you're able to see those sides of it. And again, I said I've been lucky. I consider it lucky that I've never worked in huge conglomerates. I've always worked in smaller uh, kind of. Sorry, when I was working in the private sector, I worked with relatively smaller companies most of the time, which sort of gives you a chance to bond much more with people around you. So yes, I've loved, like you said, what have I liked about my journey? So it's been the kind of learning that I've had, not just in technology, but in so many different areas. Learning about domains, learning about how people like to do things, and how you need to, sort of slowly build that system of change into them to accept the change that's happening. So yes, that journey has been very enriching for me. It's helped me learn and grow a lot.
So, how was your transition from a technical role to a project management or a people sort of role? Did you miss hands-on tech work?
Well, initially, probably yes, I would, try to micromanage when I became a project manager initially sometimes, but I think I enjoyed that much more. Um, so I enjoyed it a lot because then I could play around with the solution, um, guide and see a lot of stuff that was happening that could happen. And as I said, grow into that translator kind of a role, um, meet, work with a lot of diverse kind of stakeholders. So yes, I grew into that role, and it wasn't too long a difference, but yes, and I grew into that role. So yeah, it was interesting. It wasn't too difficult. Uh, it took me a little short while to come out of being a developer and go into the other side of it, like you say, the people's role. So that, yeah, that was interesting.
I remember us having a conversation a month ago almost about some social projects that you were involved in. So, can you talk to us about it?
Yeah. So when you're working and you have a growing family, I had two boys at that time, and the work I was doing, I was like tied up in it almost, I would say 365 days a year. Uh, so it was quite hectic. But then, um, but then somewhere at the back of the mind, that idea started developing that you need to do something beyond this as well. But then balancing life as it was at that point of time and doing something for the society was something, sort of a little. I used to think at that point of time that it was a far-fetched idea and maybe not for me right now. But I've always been like, okay, let me see what happens if something, comes to me. Um, I became involved in Art of Living around that time, and Art of Living does a lot of stuff beyond just the meditation and yoga and internal systems, etc. There is a lot of kind of social projects that happen there, and so while all this thought was going on in my mind, I got an opportunity to support a project that was doing. Now, since I didn't have much time to do anything personally, I offered to handle the back end part of it, like, communicating on emails and telephone or web. And that sort of, just started building up that thought process in me that this is, I can do the two things at the same time. Manage my family, three things: manage my family, my work, and do some social work. Not, I wouldn't call that so much social work at that point of time, but something supporting it somehow. And this grew into a volunteer movement at that point of time, the work that I was supporting in that time. And the thought was that, yeah, something needs to be done. Then I met a few like-minded friends at home in a society. We started talking about it, and out of it grew what we started calling Pracheshta Prayas. It was kind of an NGO that we set up, an organization where we said we wanted to support uh, children in their studies. And there was a slum right opposite where we lived. So we sort of, I wouldn't say I put in a lot of personal effort because there was work. Only on the weekends we could do some things. Everyone was working, but sort of we set up a small kind of a school with volunteers for the children from the slum. And most of these children had never gone to school. Their families, they were the first generation in their families to go to school, as to say. And we knew that we couldn't, even if did not have the resources, either the funds or the time to set up a full-scale school. So what we decided was we would bring them in, we would do some kind of intervention with them so that they understand how it is to sit in the school, sit in a class, be attentive, do some learning so that they are familiar with, say, numbers, alphabets, some of the other processes. And we were thankful. The school that our children used to go, and two, three of them were parents of my children's friends. So they were all going to the same school. And the pedagogy there was of the kind which, sort of did not go in so much for formal books. So we started using a similar kind of a thing there. And after about 2 years, then when we were into it, we started talking to others. We found there were schools which would take in children from the EWS without any expense to the parents. And we learned with all these things on how to handle the parents, how counseling with parents is needed, counseling of children is needed, their siblings is needed. It was also de facto sometimes, a kind of a creche for the younger children of the family, because these children would be looking after their children. The mothers were at work, they were household workers, they were rickshaw pullers, they were rag pickers. So yeah, so that was a very interesting journey. In fact, recently, some of the children from our initial 2-3 batches have just completed their 12th. And it is such a satisfying it is so satisfying to see that happen and see them grow. Them talking to us in English and then their parents saying, "We never expected this would happen." Talking to them. So this is like an amazing emotional and soul satisfying trip.
Wow, that's a huge, massive project. So, like, despite your family commitments and your work commitments, what really inspired you to keep this going? Because running a school or getting some kids who have not had the privilege to education, it's a lot of work. So, what kept you going? What was the inspiration?
So the inspiration was the joy you saw on the children's faces when you went and interacted with them, celebrated occasions with them. The joy in the faces of my children when they went and interacted with them. Uh, these two things really inspired because as they say, children learn by seeing and not by being told about it. So I saw my children also grow with that kind of a ethos in mind. And the best was the children and their parents, the joy in the parents when they came to pick up the children, when they came and saw how their children were performing. We used to have all festivals we used to celebrate at the school. It was so near to the residents that it was easy. And so we would have these functions with them. We would have a kind of an annual day where the children would perform, or a sports day, and the parents would come, the children's parents would come. And the joy you saw on their faces, the incredible, sort of uh, the surprise they had that their children could also do all this. That was an amazing experience. And the satisfaction you felt inside. You just wanted to do it.
Hmm.
It didn't feel like an extra burden that I was taking. It just became a much more joyful release from life.
So, how did you manage to raise funds to run a school?
So yeah, it was friends and family. It was, like I said, it was a small setup that we kept. And thankfully, I mean, it's like when you start doing something like this, you are never short of anything. And this is what we realized, my friend and I, who had this thought in the beginning. We used to always wonder what happens. We think of that we want to do something for the children, and suddenly someone will appear and say, "What can we do for it?" Um, we posted a lot. Like I said, we didn't have so much physical time to give. There were a few volunteers, and then eventually we hired a few teachers from the community to teach the children. We would teach them the pedagogy, and then they would teach the children. We would post a lot on the social media, in our talk about it to friends, family, and everyone. And there was never a dearth of people who would come up with stuff or with money. Yeah, so thankfully, there was never a time when we thought that we want to do this thing for the school, and it didn't happen.
Wow, that's amazing. That's very inspiring. Now, going back to your career, what was one of the most inspiring project that you have worked on so far that you really take proud of?
Yeah. So there was the first health insurance program for the underprivileged in India by the government of India, RSBY. And I was lucky enough to work on it right from the beginning. So I was working with a private organization which was doing work. This was very initial periods of the financial inclusion movement in India, and they were doing, and smart cards was something I'd been working on for almost 7, 10 years by then. Uh, network networks, the availability of internet all across was not at all reliable. It wasn't available. Cell phones were very initial phases at that point of time. Um, so movement of data was something which was very difficult. Identification, there was no Aadhaar at that point. This was, I think, 2007, 2008, way before Aadhaar became a reality. And so health insurance needs a lot of verifications and stuff. And again, this was a period which was, I think, very lucky for me, because I had been working on smart cards. I had been working using smart cards with mobile terminals for financial transactions in the rural areas, this company that I was working in. And what the thought of the concept of this RSBY, Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana, the health insurance system for the poor. The concept was that health insurance, basically what does it mean is that you pay a premium, you get insurance, that is if you need to be hospitalized, and it was only at that point of time, health insurance meant only hospitalization. So if you have to be hospitalized for some time, and the insurance company is able to verify that it is the person for whom the premium is being paid, and that person is authentic and actually admitted to a hospital, only then would they pay up to the limit that is prescribed to the hospital or to the person, depending on how it is. Now, with the poor, when you are working on that, we had a number of challenges. The geography was a challenge. The number of people involved was a challenge. Authenticating that person's identity was a challenge. Ensuring that that person was a poor person was a challenge. Checking that the person had health insurance, was registered under the health insurance scheme, was a challenge. Making sure that the person was actually admitted to a hospital, authenticated that, validating it was a challenge. Verifying that the transaction has actually taken place, verifying that the amount prescribed needed for that hospitalization is available for that person was a challenge. Without connectivity, without having too many systems in places, it was full of challenges. The first time when we, as a group, we conceptualized, we wrote down the SOPs, what we think should be happening. We wrote down a whole, sort of a manual kind of a thing of what is needed to be done, how it should be done. And I had to come up with this within a week. So we brainstormed, and then in 2 days we wrote down the manual. And then we spoke to insurance companies. The first time we spoke to the health insurance companies, they were like, "Are you crazy? How can it happen? How will we go out and verify, authenticate? We would need a huge team. We would need so much." So we said, "No, we want to use technology for it." How can you use technology in health insurance? No one was using technology in health insurance at that time, anywhere in the world. And it was like, how can you verify? How can you authenticate? If you use technology at the back end, that's still okay. But still, that's not done. You can't process, and it will take, months, if not years, to process claims. So how will they pay for it at the hospitals? How will the hospital ensure that the treatment is given to the person when they need it without the approvals? And how will you verify that this is the person? So they were like totally uninterested. Then we talked to technology teams, and they were like, "How do you go out in the field?" Of course, there were a few who were working in smart cards, who were forward looking. At least we had some success with technology companies, because they were eager to come forward and see what can be done. Then we spoke to the government technology team, NIC, National Informatics Center. And they were like, "This is impossible." But then again, there also, thankfully, we found a couple of people who were ready to at least talk about it, think about it. There were, of course, as I said, smart cards were in operation in India, mostly for GSM, the mobile phone technology at that time, which was pretty nascent. But there were a few applications which were running, and I had been fortunate enough to be a project manager on quite a few of them by then. There were a few which were running in, because technology was not there, and smart cards were able to be the bridge between offline environment, but still having some means of authentication, and verification. So, so that was used slowly over time. Confidence grew in us as well as in people, in health insurance companies. And then after a few years, the world wanted to understand how we did it.
Wow.
Uh, so yeah, it was the one of the most challenging projects I think I've ever seen happen in the world. It was an amazingly, I mean, it wasn't just very smooth, very simple. It was a learning every day. Every day was a new challenge. Some so interesting as a doctor would call up and say, "Oh, my systems are not working." Okay, so there would be a tech team there, and they would contact me. So and ask how do we work. I said, okay, ask him what's not working. The screen is blank. There is nothing happening. Okay. Have you pressed all the buttons? Yes. Have you got the smart card control? Yes. Have you plugged in the system? Plugged in? What is that? So there were these kinds of challenges. And then slowly things grew. We understood there were teams in place. Initially, it was like a small bunch of 4 or 5 of us who would be helping the joint secretary who was trying to run the scheme, and he did it amazingly. Uh, we were able to support him. There were slowly support to help you, and it just went on. The scheme went on for about, I think, 9 years, after which it was replaced by the Ayushman Bharat scheme, which is currently the health insurance scheme in India. So, yes, that was one of the most enriching and challenging periods of life.
So how long
That
was that
also,
project for?
that project, as I said, was for about 8 or 9 years.
Wow.
And that was also the time when initially I was working with a company and supporting, but then it was like the company is going to be one of the implementers, and in government, you cannot have someone from the implementer also working as a consultant for the government. And so I was asked to leave that job, and I joined as a consultant with the World Bank and GIZ to work on the project.
So,
So yeah,
it sounds like a very complex project
it
and
was.
multiple stakeholders involved, multiple year project, and having a family with you. How did you manage? Like, were there times when you thought this is just getting a bit too much? I really can't handle it. And in those situations, what kept you going?
Oh, yeah. So yes, there were situations my children were at school, but thankfully I had a lot of support from my family. I was lucky. I had a girl Friday, and she's been with me for 24 years. So I bless her all the time. She was the one who was handling the family and the home. I was hardly around. I was traveling so much. I was working on it so much, and so my children were yeah, they saw me working, and they were quite supportive. My husband was very supportive. He was working from home, so he took on a lot of the stuff that I would have done otherwise. Um, and as you say, where did that? And this was also the time when I had then started the NGO. So yeah, so weekends partly used to be there. Where did the inner strength come from? As I said, I was involved in meditation and breath work by that time. I think that gave a lot of inner strength to me. That was something which kept me sane all through, and even now. Uh, it is so important. It is so important to me. That was it. And then I think another very good reason is I enjoyed what I was doing. I
Hmm.
loved what I. So I was able to go that extra steps to do what I needed to do to balance things, make sure I was able to give my 100% to both my work and my family.
Hmm.
So
I've
I think
heard, sorry, go
I
ahead.
think that I think that's something that I've always tried to put to my children. Do what you like, what you enjoy. And then it's not a chore anymore. Then it's not a burden. Then you flow with it.
Absolutely, yeah. So there are many people, right, I've come across working in tech who normally say, well, I would love to do meditation or breathwork, but I just don't have the time for it. Right. But talking to you, I'm like, wow, how you make time for it. Now, what would you tell people? Okay, I don't have time. I can't make time for breathwork or meditation. What would be your recommendation to them?
Just look again at what you're doing. Like, how many things are we doing which are so important to us? So initially, yes, I had to force myself, wake up 10 minutes early, maybe miss out on one or two things that are not so important, maybe not watch a show on TV. And then slowly, when I saw how it was helping me, my productivity increased. I was much calmer in times of crisis, and there were innumerable crises all through the day. I was able to handle those things much better in much smaller time. That saved me so much time. If by spending 20 minutes on my meditation in the morning helped me go through the day in a much peaceful way, it kept my health better. I didn't have to go to the doctors. And before that, before I had started meditating and working on my breath, I used to be like, can someone please find me a solution? I don't feel so tired. I don't feel so depressed. I was like in a totally different kind of a zone mentally. Every doing anything was such a huge burden. Even, the children asking for something or wanting to go out. And I was like, I don't want to do all this. And I used to get irritated, angry. So that entire way I looked at life shifted. It didn't happen overnight, of course. It took a few months for that shift to happen. But then once it started happening, I was like, how can I do without it?
Nice. Yeah, because I do my meditation and breath work every morning and evening, and it's just so ingrained. It's a part of my routine. It's like waking up in the morning and brushing my teeth. It's like dental hygiene, but the mental hygiene is so important and critical, right? So now, currently, your job is a technical consultant with World Bank. What does that mean? What do you do there now?
So what do we do? It's actually a little difficult to explain, but so if you know, World Bank provides loans, etc., to governments for projects. I work with the social welfare. It's now called the People's Team, um, where social welfare or social protection and jobs are parts of what we do, or the projects on which we work. And now technology is used across the board. So my role has shifted from being just a technical consultant into, since I've been working with them for almost 15 years now as a consultant, um, I've sort of imbibed working with people on what happens in different aspects also. So we support the governments in the project that they do by sort of advising them on what kind of technology they can use, where they can use technology, how it can help them better, guiding them through the process if they need it, reviewing and talking to them, brainstorming with them on better solutions, on better ways of implementing what they want to do. So that's what a technical consultant does basically. So
Nice.
somewhere it's building a like a database of people who need those benefits or who are getting the benefits, reviewing how the money. So government has limited money. for everything. And how can you make better use of that available money for the kind of people who need it? That's where technology can support these projects a lot. And that's what we try to do. How can we better the process so that the ease of taking the benefit to the persons who need it is much easier for the beneficiary as well as for the implementers? How can you track that? How can you track that in the sense that is the 1 rupee which is supposed to be going to A goes actually to A without too much of leakage in between?
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing.
So we spoke a lot about all the successes that you've had in different projects. Now, how about failures? Can you share one memorable failure and what it taught you?
So, yeah. So when you're doing so many things over so long a period, there are certain things that you miss out on that you I won't call exactly failure, but rather things that could have been done but did not happen. So one was continuing my education. As I said in the beginning, I did my graduation and then I did a diploma, 1 year diploma. At that point of time, master's was not on the mind at all. But then over time, as I grew into my jobs and stuff, um, I felt that I missed that for two reasons. One is when you do a structured kind of a study. I learned a lot over the period, much more than anyone with a master's may have done probably. But then there are certain aspects of when you do a structured study that you learn, which you miss out while you are, learning on the job, kind of. So yeah, I felt like, that was something that I missed out. The second was the availability of the two letters behind your name. A master's degree gives you weight when you talk about it. You may be talking the same thing, but one, your language changes a bit, and two, the perception of people listening to you changes a bit. And this was something that I saw happen. So that, sort of pulled me a little back. And I think about 8 years back, I decided to do a master's. I got an admission in an online course. I got all the books and stuff, but I had no time. At that point of time. So they just lay on the shelf. But then that thought had come into it. So now, uh, 2 years back, I started my master's, and I will be completing it this year. And MBA, and I'm very happy and proud of myself for doing it now.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank
I'm
you.
surprised you're saying this because here in New Zealand, at least, right, education doesn't really matter, like a postgraduate education. Life experiences matter. And like, especially with you, someone like you, having worked on those social projects, social impact projects, like you're talking about billions of people in India, and implementing a project for insurance and stuff is really not that easy, right? So that will be considered as just like invaluable, like a master's qualification just wouldn't really be in the picture, wouldn't really matter. So that's quite interesting.
Didn't matter at that point of time when I was working in it so much. But what I realized was that the kind of work I had done and we had done as a team did, of course, it carried a lot of impact. There was a lot of work that was done at that time. It was appreciated a lot. I got a lot of appreciation as well. But over time, that dwindles a bit. Not a bit, a lot. Whereas I saw that people who had done much less work than me getting a lot more visibility.
Mm.
And it is not just, I think it's also the networks that you create. So probably it's not just the masters being there, it's also how you are able to create the networks around. How you are able to, maybe I was too much of an introvert at that point of time to capitalize on what had been done. Uh, so I needed the confidence of the masters behind me to be able to talk about it. Maybe it's me, but no, in India, yes, it does matter.
Mm.
Uh, Experiences, of course, are important, but then people give value to that only if they see that you have the education behind it as well.
Mm.
And
Cool.
then the second thing what helped me go on with the masters is there's been a huge shift in what is happening in tech since the time that I worked very deeply in it and stuff. So I thought it was a good time to also upgrade my knowledge about those newer aspects of technology.
Really cool. It's like it becomes harder, I would feel, right? Being committed to a very structured education.
Very hard. But yeah, it becomes hard. It becomes much harder to sit down and study. It becomes much harder to give the exams. But I found it interesting, so I'm doing it. Yeah, I'm almost through with it. So
Mm. So you've been in tech since 1999, and now throughout these years, like, have you seen a shift with representation of women in technical roles? Has it changed since? And what are your thoughts about gender bias?
so yeah, of course. I mean, there were a lot of women in tech. There still are a lot of women in tech. But the way, so that one is how the women or we see ourselves as part of the whole system. And then second is how the system and the society sees us. Initially, it was you're working, but your prime, the important part in your life is also your family. So you're working, but then you don't have to, you have to support that aspect of you much better. So it was difficult. I'm very lucky in this that I had help at home, 24-hour help. My family supported me all through. I don't think I've ever had to take leave because there was work at home. Of course, sometimes with children and stuff, you have to, but that's fine. That wasn't like always, every day, every second. But I used to, and I still admire those women who used to, do all the work at home and then still come and work at the office, etc. You could see they have much more capability. They could do so much more if they had the time and the support for that. So today that has changed quite a lot. Uh, that has changed entirely. Families are now supportive. Work environment is supporting. I may have blinders on that aspect because still there must be a lot of women who face a lot of bias because of which, and we work in at the World Bank, we work on such projects where we see that this is happening. Women become the caregivers at home. They cannot achieve their potential. They can't go out to work. But now at least we have the choice. Whether we exert that choice or not is a different aspect. And I'm sure there still are a lot of women who don't have that choice. Or at least they can't see that choice. So there is a lot of work that is needed to be done. But the change is more on our side. we see that we have choices, we have the opportunities, and we need to make use of those choices and opportunities. Of course, there are still biases. Of course, there are um, a lot of things you see happening in the society, which make families afraid of letting their daughters or daughter-in-laws or sisters go out and work. And that narrative needs to keep changing. We need to work as a society. You can't expect just the police or the government to take steps. We have to change ourselves. We have to make that change within our families, teach our sons better. Because that's where the problem starts. We don't treat our daughters and sons the same. And that's what needs to change, I think.
Cool. Very nice. So now to finish off, some rapid fire questions to you. So coffee or tea, and how many cups do you need to power through a typical day?
Definitely coffee, but I am more of a cold coffee drinker, and one cold coffee a day is good for me.
Oh, good. Now, what's your favorite hobby to unwind after a hectic week of consulting?
Meditation.
Good.
and attending. So meditation is actually daily. So once a week, we have these musical evenings where there is a lot of joy around. It's a very simple kind of gatherings where we sing together, immaterial whether you can or not sing, but we just sing and we praise each other. So it's a very joyful kind of time. Without any, and that's the most interesting part, and we are able to enjoy with no alcohol, no other substances, nothing, and still have a great time. So those kinds of evenings is something which rejuvenate you.
Very good. Is there a quirky or a unique habit you've developed over your career?
I don't think so, but probably I can't think of one.
Okay, that's fine. So now to finish off, for our listeners who aspire to blend technology with meaningful social impact, what's one piece of advice you'd like to share?
Keep that thought alive and don't hesitate when an opportunity comes up. At least try it out. It may not work out for you, but keep yourself open to opportunities and keep the thought alive that you want to do something. The opportunities will come, and then just pick them up.
Great. Thank you so much, Sumita, for your time. It was just really nice to hear your story and all the impactful projects that you've been working on. Any final thoughts from your side?
No, thank you so much, Meena. It has been a really amazing journey that I've had, and I'm grateful to all who've helped me on this. So, yeah, thank you so much for this.